Was Paradox about to defeat Yugi, Jaden, and Yusei in the movie Bonds Beyond Time by TGS Anime? I don't know why I'm not subscribed to that. I don't like notifications, but I don't know why I'm not subscribed to him. Very good content creator. Very, very good person. Does a lot of cool content. I kind of bridge that casual and competitive gap. Like, I'm not super competitive. Like, there are people that will be able to be like, actually, yeah, if you Book of Moon the Guardian Chimera, this is exactly what happens and why this happens. This is the ruling. Okay, that makes sense, I guess. But I also, like, if someone's handed me a deck, I could play the game competently, right? I'm somewhere in the middle. And TGS Anime helped kind of like bridge that gap between people like me who grew up with GX, grew up with Duel Monsters, grew up with 5Ds to an extent as well, and kind of applying modern card logic and kind of reverse engineering these duels. And I kind of really love this content. So if that's right up your alley, first of all, you should definitely go check them out. That way you can see the full, unpaused, unreacted to, unedited cut. Second, I'm very curious as to what points are going to be brought up and really what this video is going to be. So, alas, without further ado.
In the Yu-Gi-Oh movie, Bonds Beyond Time, we get to see one of the most incredible things you could ever ask for. 3 main characters from 3 different generations of Yu-Gi-Oh, all coming together to duel against a united threat.
This movie, as far as I'm aware, isn't canon. It was Dark Dimension that was canon to the anime, right? But this was strictly just non-canon, if I remember correctly.
Let's go!
And while watching Yugi, Jaden, and Yusei play off each other is amazing to see, I have 2 questions that I'd like to answer for today's video. Out of the 3 main characters, which one put in the most work? Who would we say is the MVP? And 2,
I think I actually analyzed that a while back. I think Jaden actually puts in a lot of the, like, supplemental plays, if that makes sense. I'll have to look at the turn structure in this video. I thought Jaden actually did a bunch of the heavy lifting in certain aspects.
did Paradox make any big mistakes in this duel that
I think he did,
cost
yeah.
in the duel from misplays or things like that? Or did he play the best duel that he could? All these questions will be answered in today's duel analysis of the Bonds Beyond Time movie duel. But first, some important things to note.
Key things.
Some of you might be asking, how is this duel even possible? Isn't Yusei
Time paradox. To cite the old meme, right? There's wibbly wobbly, timey wimey shenanigans the Crimson Dragon gets involved. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
from like decades in the future? And while yes, that is true, Paradox, you see, is from the even more distant future, where human civilization has been destroyed by the Mech Lord Emperor genocide. Paradox was one of the last few survivors of his time. And as a last-ditch attempt to save the future, he sends a robotic version of his younger self back to the past to destroy the original source of the apocalypse, which was, of course, a children's card game.
Yeah.
Duel Monsters. However,
It's so interesting. So Bonds Beyond, God, the Neos do be caked up though. Let's be real. It's actually rather unfortunate because as somebody that loved GX, we never got a dubbed GX Season 4. We never did. And honestly, with certain things, you know, I don't think they could have necessarily done that. They did a good enough job with Season 3, and that was, God, it was so good. But Season 4 was a little different. And Season 4, I mean, we had, you know, existentialism, the fear and dread of growing up and coming into your own, right? And we had effectively what came down to Jaden and Yubel, and actually at one point just Jaden, versus literally Darkness Incarnate with a really cool 0 to Infinity strat, which is actually super cool. I'd love to see analysis on that, actually. And it's like, yeah, no, this children's card game is actually like this universal force, and on one side is the light, the other is the reverse side is the dark, and it's just like, it's so over the top, and it's so good. So when I hear something like, Paradox from the distant future sending a younger mechanic version of himself back, it does very much hit GX notes, but just dialed up. It's so good.
However, before he goes through with this, he scoops up some of the most powerful dragons throughout history. Although, by doing so, he inadvertently alerts both Yusei and Jaden onto his plans, giving them a chance to go back in time to Yugi's era and join forces in order to stop him in his tracks. And it is here that our 3v1 duel begins.
I think it was a full round, right?
The duel is structured so that Paradox takes...
I think it went Yugi, Jaden, Yusei. No, it's 2 rounds, right? Because I think it ended with Yusei.
every other turn, while each protagonist takes 1 turn each before resetting. Basically, it's...
First Yusei goes, then I go, then Jaden goes, then I go,
Wait.
then Yugi goes, and then I go.
That means we each get 1 turn per round, and you get like a gajillion.
I'm glad you understand.
Now, the fairness of this duel
Karimo, please. God. I actually haven't seen the full series. I need to do that now.
structure might be worth at least addressing because there's some advantages given to each side depending on how you really look at this duel. For instance,
Like, think about it this way. Yes, Paradox gets 3 turns. So, like, in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Like, this man could, like, Alistair, and then, like, Yugi would go. And this man could, for some reason, you know, maybe he didn't... Maybe he ashed or whatever, right? Cool, second Alistair. I mean, he's going to get that invocation by that second or third turn. And everyone else has, like, a chance to maybe get, like, a single normal summon off and a couple special summons, right? But, like, no, there's advantages and disadvantages to both sides. And yes, Paradox will get more monster presence, right? But, I mean, Yugi could, like, set 4 back row, summon Dark Magician in some Yu-Gi-Oh way, right? And then you could have, like, Jaden set, like, 3 back row, and then Yusei set, like, another 3 back row, and suddenly you're running at, like, 10 back row.
Paradox gets 3 turns, while each protagonist gets only 1. Saying that, though, the protagonists get a combined starting hand of 15, while Paradox only has 5. Then again, the protagonists do have to share a field and life points, meaning they only have 5 monster zones and 5 spell and trap zones to share between them all, which, if you've ever played in a random tag duel, you know can sometimes be a recipe for disaster. So all in all, the duel is set.
God, I have ideas. I've been thinking about homebrewing, like, weird little modifiers to do to some duels. God, I've been really toying with that idea. And there's so many cool things. You don't have to just do competitive play. You don't even have to do, like, GOAT format or Edison format. You can just... There's things that I've been thinking about, and if you're curious about them, I can maybe speed up the process on releasing that.
Set up as fairly as it possibly can be, really. In fact, checking in with you guys, you all seem to agree that this duel is as fair as it is unfair, which makes it fair or unfair for both, I guess. So, with all that out of the way, let's take a look at the duel. The duel begins.
Paradox can also deck out easier. Yes, you do bring up a good point.
And Paradox takes the first move. He draws and we see his opening hand. It consists of Malefic World, Malefic Cyber End Dragon, Malefic Claw Stream, Malefic Selector, Malefic Paradigm Shift, and Malefic Tune. He begins by playing his field spell, Malefic World, with its effect guaranteeing him a random Malefic monster every draw phase. This effect differs from the real world version, as in the real world version, you choose 3 cards from your deck and they can be any Malefic card you want, and you add one of them at random. Whereas this one...
Yeah. I remember when Malefics were coming out, actually. God, it's been a hot minute, hasn't it? It was cool. They never really went anywhere, from my understanding. I think still see some, like, niche play. It's not like Rogue or anything, right? Like how Dark Magician's kind of like Rogue, right? And Blue Eyes is kind of Rogue, right? Whereas something like Kashtira was like tier 1. Branded was like, what, tier 2 or something like that? You get what I'm saying, right? I mean, it's like niche, not even like Rogue status.
One is exclusively monsters, and it's just completely random which one it adds. In fact, the anime Malefic cards are very, very different from the real world counterparts.
Yeah, they are, aren't
When Malefics are summoned, the originals go to the grave instead of being banished. You can have as many Malefics as you want on the field instead of just 1, and some Malefics retain their original version's effects. Now, with Malefic World live on the field, Paradox sends his Cyber End Dragon from his extra deck to the grave to summon its Malefic form, Malefic Cyber End Dragon.
God, I would have loved to see the duel between Zane Truesdale post season 4 GX and Paradox. That would have been nasty to see Zane Truesdale go up against Paradox, and Paradox to go to the point that he actually, well, I guess technically he wouldn't have to take it from him by force, right? Like all Yusei had to do was summon Stardust, and then he was able to steal it, right? I guess technically that's fair, but that would have been cool to see it all out like Zane Truesdale post season 4, right? I mean, he's kind of recovering in season 4 from the Underworld deck, but I mean, I really like Zane Truesdale, if you can't tell.
Dragon. He ends by setting his Malefic tune face down. Now it's the protagonist's turn, and Yusei goes first. His opening hand consists of Reincarnation of Hope, Sonic Chick, Quillbolt Hedgehog, Junk Synchron, Miracle's Wake, and Stardust Mirage.
That's a Junk
He begins
Synchro.
by playing his spell, Reincarnation of Hope, which lets him discard 2 cards, and then, during the second standby phase, he can add any monster from his deck to his hand. He sends Sonic Chick and Quillbolt Hedgehog. He then summons Junk Synchron, whose effect lets him summon Sonic Chick back from the grave. Now, with a tuner on the field, he revives Quillbolt Hedgehog, resulting in 6 stars total. He then synchro summons into Junk Gardener. He ends by setting 2
Wasn't Junk Gardener movie specific?
cards face down, Miracle's Wake, and Stardust Mirage. Back to Paradox, and instead of drawing, he adds a random Malefic to the hand. He gets Malefic Rainbow Dragon, which he immediately summons to the field by sending the original Rainbow from his deck to the grave. This is a crucial moment in the duel. It could be considered a misplay. I'll talk a little bit why it might be a bit later, but
Interesting.
keep this Rainbow Dragon in mind for later.
Okay.
Paradox attacks Junk Gardener with Rainbow Dragon. However, Yusei uses Gardener's ability to switch the attacking monster into defense. This was a
Therefore
calculated
negating
move
attack.
on Paradox's behalf, as now he can attack with Malefic Cyber End Dragon, which will not only destroy Junk Gardener,
I'm pretty sure it's going to retain the piercing effect.
but also deal piercing battle damage, thanks to its anime version's effects. However, this is where Junk Gardener's second ability kicks in. It also switches Cyber End into defense after its
I think that's one of those decks that actually would benefit from, and I know people always are like, well, what if the game had 4,000 points, right? I think you might see decks like Cyber Dragons actually see potentially a bit of an uptick. But also that's kind of, I guess, saying like, well, what if my deck got pot agreed, right? Well, if you don't want pot agreed in the format, you really don't. I know you want to. I know you want to be like, I play pot agreed. What does it do? You don't want pot agreed in the format. You don't want pot agreed in the form. Like, trust me, your homebrew will use pot of greed probably way worse than something like Kashtira could. Like, all I'm saying. Right? You imagine full power Teledad, right? With like maybe back in the day, obviously, right? Can you imagine full power Teledad in like, God, was that 2000? Like, that was 2007? Was it? Yeah, you think, and I know you think you want it, right, chat? You know, you think you want it. You think you want it, but you don't. Now, you know, we're talking like original, like tour guide, Dark Arm Dragon, like, ugh. Now that has pot agreed versus everything else you're playing. And that's just a tier 0 form. Imagine Dragon Rulers with pot, right? No, like pot agreed should not be in the game. But I guess circling back around, I don't know. I'd be curious to test a 4,000 life point format. That might be interesting.
destruction. Yusei then chains Miracle Wake at the end of the battle phase, which lets him special summon the destroyed monster back to the field. Paradox ends by setting Malefic Claw Stream face down. You're going to notice a theme within this duel for the protagonists. Every time their main monsters gets destroyed, they usually come back, and that's kind of their game plan. They keep always having field presence, basically. That's the strategy they're going for.
I mean,
now it's Jaden's turn. His opening hand consists of Polymerization, Elemental Hero Neos, Hero Barrier, Elemental Mirage, Flute of Summoning
Is that where that art's from? I actually didn't know where this art was from. I had no idea it was from this movie.
Rebo, and Neos Spiral Force. Straight away he plays Polymerization, and since all the protagonists are sharing one field, he fuses Neos with Junk Gardener to make Elemental Hero Neos Knight.
Didn't this actually see some weird niche experimentation in like the TCG? Neos Knight. I have to actually look up the effect really quick. I thought that I know Draco Acqueist, which we'll get to. I know that still kind of sees some weird experimentation. Neos and a warrior monster. Must be fusion summoned, gains attack equal half the original attack of the warrior monster used for fusion material. Except Neos. That can make a second attack during each battle phase, and they take no battle damage. So it's strictly just a I'ma get swole beater to beat over this thing. I mean, it's not bad, but I mean, it doesn't have a protection effect. It doesn't, have any staying power, and it doesn't really do any damage. But mean, if you need to beat over like a Cyber Dragon, if you need to beat over like, I don't know, a Cosmo Dark World for some reason, I mean, it's gonna beat it over.
Through its effect, it gains attack equal to half of Junk Gardener's, giving it 3200 attack. And not only that, it also has an extra attack. So, it attacks and destroys both Malefic Cyber End and Malefic Rainbow Dragon, which, fun fact, are the two monsters that Paradox stole from Jaden's timeline.
Yeah.
Fitting he should be the one to destroy them. Now,
It's
some
kinda cool,
observant
yeah.
viewers might be
I didn't even think about that actually, but that's a really cool parallel there actually.
saying, wait a minute, why didn't Paradox use his face-down Malefic Claw Stream to destroy Neosnight when it was summoned or when it was attacking?
Yeah.
Well, in the anime, Claw Stream can only be activated if there is a Malefic Synchro monster on the field. So, Paradox actually couldn't use the trap here. However,
There was a Malefic monster, but not a Malefic Synchro monster straight face up. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Paradox does play his other trap, Malefic Tune, which, since a Malefic was destroyed, it allowed him to draw 2 cards from the top of his deck,
Man.
which were Malefic Parallel Gear and Malefic Force. Jaden ends by setting 4 cards face down: Hero Barrier, Elemental Mirage, Flute of Summoning Karibo, and Neos Spiral Force. And keep in mind, this means that the spell and trap zones are completely full. And what that means is if nothing is used by the time Yugi's turn comes to play, he can't activate any spells or traps, leaving him with less tactics, really. It's Paradox's turn, and he draws again through Malefic World. This time he gets Malefic Stardust Dragon. He immediately summons it by...
Sorry, one too many clicks. And to be fair, like, considering how Dark Magician, not just Yugi, right, but how Dark Magician works, Dark Magician kind of needs their back row. Like, they kind of need their Dark Magic Circle. They kind of need space for their navigation and stuff, right? I mean, that's if we're talking about modern Dark Magician. You know, you can't exactly play things like, was it Magical Dimension? I think that was one of them, the quick play. 1,000 Knives as well, Dark Magic Attack. I mean, campy anime, things like that, right? I don't know if 1,000 Knives is necessarily campy, actually. I think, anyways, right? But things like that spells trouble if he can't use his back row.
Sending Stardust to the grave from his extra deck. He then normal summons Malefic Parallel Gear and tunes it with Stardust to make the level 10 Synchro Malefic Paradox Dragon, which, when it hits the field, is able to special summon any Synchro monster in the grave, ignoring its summoning conditions. Now, all the face-up monsters the opponent controls lose attack equal to the total attack of all face-up Synchro monsters Paradox controls that aren't Paradox Dragon. Paradox then attacks Neos Knight, but Jaden activates Hero Barrier, negating the attack. Now, Paradox plays his Claw Stream to destroy Neos Knight.
You know, because Hero Barrier is just effectively a Spell Speed 2 theme negate attack, right? Can you imagine if we got like an art, like a meta archetype specific like negate attack? How like oddly useful that might be? Like, can you imagine something like, I don't know, like Kashtira or like Branded or something, right? And they just have like a themed like negate attack. I mean, maybe if it was just negate attack itself, right? I don't know, maybe it was like a second effect on like a hand trap, or if it's like how we had Adventure Package, right? One of the adventure cards had like 2 effects on it, so you could ash one effect, but the other effect could still be activated and go off, right? Like, have a card that does that. It's like it functions as a key component of the deck, but it also is just like, yeah, it can just be a negate attack if I need it to be. That might be cool. Yeah, I did see U-Bell. I love me some U-Bell.
Looking in this play in hindsight, it made more sense for Paradox to use Claw Stream first, destroy the monster, then potentially attack for game. So why he didn't, I'm unsure about. It doesn't really matter since the result would have occurred, as now, since an elemental hero was destroyed by a card effect, Jaden activates his face-down Elemental Mirage, resummoning Neos back to the field.
A perfect counter.
Paradox is unable to attack with Stardust due to Malefic World's effect, so he ends his turn by setting 2 cards face down, Malefic Force and Malefic Paradigm Shift. Now it's Yugi's turn. His opening hand consists of Ancient Rules, Bonds between Teacher and Student, Magic Gate of Miracles, Dark Magic Twin Burst, Dark Spiral Force, and Defusion. However, since 2 turns had passed since Yusei used Reincarnation of Hope, its effect allowed Yugi to add Dark Magician from his deck to his hand. Yugi then activates Ancient Rules to summon Dark Magician, then plays Bond between Teacher and Student to summon Dark Magician Girl from his deck in defense position. And it is here that Yusei and Yugi share a moment.
Yusei,
Now, with 2 spellcasters, he uses Magic Gate of Miracles, which lets him change 1 attack position monster Paradox controls to defense, and then take control of it. Also, the monster taken cannot be destroyed by battle. Paradox assumes Yugi's gonna snatch Paradox Dragon because it is the more powerful monster on the field, and so he chains Malefic Force to make it immune to opponent's spell cards.
Technically, this wouldn't be like in paper, because if you have to declare a target, you'd have to declare target first. So this is definitely for animisms. But technically, it depends if this gate actually targets or not. Because if it targets, you'd have to declare target. But if it doesn't, right, you can kind of just, he would have to chain it in response or risk Paradox Dragon being taken. So I guess it depends on the wording there.
However, Yugi instead chooses Stardust Dragon, bringing it to the protagonist's side of the field. And now, with no synchro monsters, Paradox Dragon's reduction effect is removed from all monsters affected. Yugi then plays Dark Magic Twin Burst, which increases the attack of Dark Magician with Dark Magician Girl's attack. He then attacks and destroys Paradox Dragon. Paradox then activates his last face down, Malefic Paradigm Shift, which, by paying half of his life points, allows him to summon his ultimate monster, Malefic Truth Dragon. Yugi ends by setting 2 cards face down, Dark Spiral Force and Defusion. It's the penultimate turn and the most crucial moment in the duel. Paradox draws through his field spell and gets Malefic.
Yeah, so it was a full round, right? We had Yusei go, we had Jaden go, we had Yugi go, and then it ends with Yusei. It's actually a very short duel.
Red Eyes Black Dragon. He then activates Malefic Selector, letting him remove from play 2 Malefic monsters in his graveyard to add Malefic Divide and Malefic Blue Eyes White Dragon. He summons both of these monsters by sending their counterparts from the deck to the grave. He enters his battle phase and first attacks with Red Eyes to destroy Dark Magician Girl, with it revealed that Truth Dragon will destroy all monsters the opponent controls if any Malefic destroys a card by battle. On top of this, it will also deal 800 damage for each one destroyed. Hearing this though, Jaden plays Yugi's face down Defusion, splitting his Neos Knight back into Neos and Junk Gardener. Now with Gardener on the field, Yusei is able to use its effect to switch Malefic Red Eyes into defense before it can destroy Dark Magician Girl.
So that's actually a really good use of Defusion. So going back through GX recently, there's a lot of isms with Defusion that don't actually work. So for example, if like Cyber End Dragon is attacking Flame Wingman, right, and then Jaden will play like Defusion, right, oh well, your dragon misses my attack, it doesn't have a target anymore. That's not how that works. You could in fact, yes, play the Diffusion, but because the board changed at that point, you'd be looking at a replay of attack, and then the Cyber End Dragon could declare a new target. But you know, obviously with this, it actually was correct, where it was defusioning back into the Neos and the Gardener, and Gardener activated its effect to put the Red Eyes into defense position, which was just very, very interesting.
Paradox then attacks with Malefic Blue Eyes, targeting Dark Magician. This time the attack is successful, and as all the monsters are about to be destroyed, Yusei quickly uses his Stardust's ability to tribute itself to negate the destruction and instead destroy Truth Dragon. However, Paradox uses Truth Dragon's other effect to keep it alive by banishing a Malefic in the grave. He banishes Rainbow Dragon to do this. Now, with one final attack left, Malefic Truth Dragon attacks Neos, who is in defense position. The attack is successful, and so Dark Magician Girl and Junk Gardener are destroyed, inflicting 1,600 damage, leaving them with only 500 life points left. But Paradox is not done. He activates Malefic Divide, letting him special summon Malefic Stardust from the grave, but it will only stay till the end phase. Stardust attempts to attack directly for game, but Jaden plays the Flute of Summoning Karibo, letting Yugi add Karibo straight to his hand to negate the battle damage. The end phase occurs.
Wait, yeah, I mean, that is the other effect. It's add a Karibo, right? Is it add a Karibo? What is the actual wording on it? Because that could actually have other potential ramifications on it too. Oh, it's just a Karibo or winged Karibo. It's not Karibo specific, if that makes sense.
And Malefic Stardust is banished, while the real Stardust returns through its effect. Which, fun fact, this is actually an illegal move. Stardust Dragon was never actually successfully summoned. It was brought out through other means, basically.
Yep.
This means it can't actually be special summoned from the graveyard. It's the same.
Yeah, so if you Cyberstein, and he'll go into Starlight Road, like if you Cyberstein in a format that, I don't think any format has Cyberstein Leal, right? But if you cheese Stardust Dragon out from the extra deck and you activate its effect, because it was not properly summoned, I'm so sorry, Pause Champ, it will not actually be able to be able to recur from the graveyard because it was not properly summoned the first time.
Same thing that happens if you use a Starlight Road to summon a Stardust Dragon. If you use that Stardust Dragon's ability, it'll go to the grave, but it can't come back.
Nope.
That's basically how it works. But it's the anime, the Malefic version was brought out, maybe technically it was brought out for real. It's fine. Now with Stardust, Yusei uses Stardust Mirage to return all monsters destroyed this turn back to the field. We'll come back to this turn, don't you worry. Now it's back to Yusei's turn. He draws, but he doesn't even need it. All the pieces for victory are already on the field. Jaden activates his face down Neos Spiral Force, which doubles the attack of Stardust to 5,000. However, Neos isn't allowed to attack. Yugi then uses his face down Dark Spiral Force, which also doubles the attack of Stardust to 10,000. However, Dark Magician isn't allowed to attack. Now, with a 10k monster, Yusei uses Stardust to attack and destroy Malefic Truth Dragon, winning the protagonists the duel.
It's a very short duel.
So after watching that whole duel and reverse engineering what everybody had in their hands and everything, I have determined that Paradox has...
I feel like we're going to get a Mathmatech player gonna come across this and be like, 10,000, my Mathmatech can hit 20k very easily. Not making fun of them. Like, Mathmatechs actually sound really cool.
Two potential opportunities for victory in this duel. The first one was in the second turn. This was when he drew Malefic Rainbow Dragon. Many of you might not know this, but Malefic Rainbow Dragon in the anime actually has Rainbow Dragon's ability as well, which is that during either player's turn, you can send all other monsters you control to the graveyard to have this card gain 1,000 attack for each Malefic monster sent. Also, you can remove from play all Malefic monsters in your graveyard to shuffle all cards on the field into the deck. It's that second effect that we are most interested in here. Say Paradox just didn't summon Malefic Rainbow Dragon straight away and just held on to it a little bit. That second effect would have been huge. Jaden fills his entire back row with all those cards. They have monsters on the field. You summon out this Rainbow Dragon, banish all of the Malefics in the graveyard, and just wipe the entire field. Now all you need to do is just draw any of the 3,000 attack point or more monsters which you know you have in that deck because you've got loads of them. Just attack directly once, and that's game. It's a good idea in theory.
Right.
However, the problem with this strategy is that even if we have a strong monster in hand, Rainbow Dragon will bounce the field spell back into the deck, meaning that Paradox actually won't be able to summon his Malefic monster because you need the field spell on the field. So he'll either need to randomly draw his field spell back or potentially use his Malefic Selector that he has in his hand.
So, I mean, if he has anything else, like if he had Malefic Red Eyes out first, or if he had Malefic Blue Eyes, right, turn one, maybe that would have been the better play. Maybe that would have been the optimal play. But yeah. I mean, if you're going to get rid of your field spell, which allows you to make your plays go off, I mean, it's not like Malefic World is like Magical Meltdown, right? Where technically, you know, me running Invoked, I can kind of not have to worry about that sometimes. Like, it's cool, it's awesome to have up, but I mean, it doesn't make my deck go burr. Whereas Malefic World kind of makes Paradox's deck go burr. So, I mean, yeah, no, that's valid, actually. I mean, if he got Rainbow Dragon later, it probably would have been a better play if he could close out the game. But I think this was the best play Paradox had at the time. And yeah, if he had another Malefic to potentially replace it, probably would have been the better way to go.
Banishing 2 monsters in his graveyard, he can add any 2 Malefic cards from his deck to his hand. So he could have a powerful monster and his field spell back. But the problem with that is, we've just banished all of the Malefic monsters in the grave.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, this strategy does not work. This is busted. He couldn't have started the chain of victory on his second turn, unfortunately. Never mind. However, fun fact, if Paradox is simply not attacked during his second turn, then no matter what Jaden did during his turn, even if he makes Neos Knight, he still wouldn't have been able to get over the 2 Malefic monsters, since they both have 4k attack, meaning they live, and Paradox is off to a much better start in the duel. This is a classic case of less equals more. But now this is the real one. The second potential win is during the penultimate turn. It all begins after Red Eyes is switched to defense due to Junk Gardener's effect. Instead of attacking with Blue Eyes, he could have chosen to attack next with his 4,000 attack point monster and chosen Dark Magician, which was in attack mode. He could have
Yeah.
dealt 2,500 damage. Then Yusei would have negated the destruction with Stardust, and then Blue Eyes can attack the defense position monster Neos, then everything would have exploded, and Paradox would have won. However, in this scenario, Jaden would have used his Flute of Summoning Kuriboh a little bit earlier. So what would have happened is, Truth Dragon attacks Dark Magician, Jaden plays Flute of Summoning Kuriboh, Yugi discards Kuriboh, no battle damage. The explosion occurs, but Stardust negates. Blue Eyes then attacks Neos, Neos is destroyed, and then Dark Magician Girl and Junk Gardener are destroyed, dealing 1,600 damage, which leaves them with 800 life points left.
Right.
Paradox then revives Malefic Stardust Dragon, attacks, and well, with no more defense and no Stardust Dragon on the field to use Mirage with, it's game. Think,
Yeah.
Paradox. If you'd have just taken a step back and looked at the turn, you could have guaranteed yourself a win in this duel.
That almost reminds me about how we used to play around Gores, right? Remember Gores, Emissary of Darkness? If an opponent attacks you, attacks you directly, you have it in hand, you can reveal it to special summon it and special summon a Gores Emissary of Darkness token with attack equal to whatever that monster did, right? So say if your opponent was wide open, right, and you're like, oh, I have a 2,000 attack, 3,000 attack, 4,000 attack, right? And you're just like, I'll just close that game, right? Attack with 4K right into the Gores. They drop Gores. They drop a 4K token, right? Sure, the 3K can beat over the actual Gores, but I mean, you're staring at a 4K token right there. So it's not the same. It's not. But it kind of reminds me that, like, God, there used to be a time when we had to play around Gores. Like, Gores was everywhere. I'm very curious if Gores could actually hang in the current metagames.
Although, maybe not. In a shocking twist, it was actually the protagonists who misplayed. Yes, believe it or not, Yugi, Jaden, and Yusei already had game, and they could have won this turn if they really wanted to. Maybe they were just playing with Paradox. Who knows?
Dragging
But
it out.
how, you might be asking?
They were having fun.
They had game as soon as Paradox decided to attack Dark Magician. But you see, two cards that are face down that some of you might have forgotten about are their Spiral Forces, which doubles the attack of a monster. So, when Paradox says,
Go, Blue Eyes! Pick up where Red Eyes left off!
all they need to do is chain Neo's Spiral Force and Dark Spiral Force onto Dark Magician to give it 10,000 attack and win during Paradox's battle phase.
I mean, I think it has less of a dramatic effect, but he's absolutely right. If it is just, activate if you can activate it during a battle phase, I mean, it's not your battle phase because, Neos can't attack this turn, but if it can be activated during a battle phase, yeah, I mean, this tracks. Yeah, now, like, I think it's less dramatic, but yeah.
The end. I mean, who cares about the drawback of these cards? Neos can't attack and Dark Magician can't attack. Who cares? They're being attacked into. That's not a problem. So to answer the question posed today, could Paradox have won this duel? I mean, he could have played a little bit better, but most likely, no. His fate was pretty much sealed in that penultimate turn, so no. And if I had to answer who I felt was the MVP of the duel on the protagonist side, then I would say all of them. They all put the work in. They all added something to this duel that was either to protect themselves or to go on the offensive.
Right.
Jaden took down 2 4K monsters in one turn. However, he was only able to do so because Yusei manipulated Paradox's monsters, and as well, he actually tanked 2 deadly attacks too. Yugi was able to deal with Paradox's first boss monster. However, it was Yusei who had helped him get his Dark Magician to his hand, which was what instigated all the plays. And Jaden did do that clutch move with the Flute of Summoning Kuriboh, saving them at the last possible second. However, I guess it was Yugi's Kuriboh, and I guess Yusei did have the Stardust play that kept all of their monsters alive for a turn, which kept him in the game. But Yugi was the one who got it back for him. And of course, the 10k monster at the end, but everyone contributed towards that.
Yeah.
Basically,
It's a cool
they're all
back and forth.
MVPs.
It's
And
cool
I asked you
crisscross.
guys in my community poll, you all thought that it was Yusei, to be fair. I mean, fair enough. If you disagree, let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to know. But other than that, that was another duel analysis done. And the final movie duel analysis. If you want to see more of these for main series duels, the plan was to do all the movie duels and that was going to be it. But this series has been doing really well. And if
Yeah.
you'd like to see duels from the anime, think Raphael versus Yugi. Give the
it'd be
video a like if
amazing.
you would like to see more of these, and that's the only way that I'll know to make more. But other than that, thank you all for watching. You've all been awesome. Catch you next time. Bye, everyone.
Oh man, Raphael versus Yugi would be actually super awesome. Like I would absolutely watch that. Like I would wait a little bit to react to that, right? I want to give a good week or so minimum. That way it has all the time it has in the algorithm. But like this was actually really cool. And it was kind of really good to just do kind of also a commentary on this as well in regards to some of my casual experience and some of like what I remember, right? Having to play around Gores. Let me know what you thought about this. I thought this was an amazing video, and I actually really liked this the movie. Might not be canon, but it was one of the first, you know, animation adaptations that we really saw Jaden in after season 4 GX never came out in English. So I mean, I always have a soft spot for GX and GX characters, let's put it that way. But what are your thoughts on it? What are your thoughts on this movie? What are your thoughts on the duel? What are your thoughts on Gores? Do you remember having to play around Gores? And most importantly, if this content did interest you, you should definitely go check out TGS Anime. He puts out a lot of great work and a lot of just awesome videos like this. So you should definitely go check him out. You should definitely go give him a little subscribe, if you will. And with that being said, I will see you all in the next